My people, imagine sitting before a plate of fried cockroaches and roasted snake head. What looked like food was a test that would change a man's life forever. Hello, my beautiful people. Welcome back to my channel. Go on, grab your tea, grab your snacks, and get comfortable, because today's story is one you don't want to miss. It's a tale full of love, plenty of laughter, and yes, more pepper than anyone bargained for. This is the story of Adani and Rohan, two hearts from two very different worlds, colliding in the most surprising, hilarious, and unforgettable way possible. Our story begins not in a grand ballroom or on a moonlit beach, but in the bustling, wonderfully chaotic spice aisle of a global market in London. Adani, a proud Yoruba woman with a smile that could outshine the Lagos sun and a laugh that echoed with pure joy, was on a mission. She was searching for authentic Cameroon pepper, the kind that carried the heat of the motherland. Her hands, adorned with colorful bracelets, sifted through packets, her nose twitching as she sought that familiar, fiery scent. It was there she bumped, quite literally, into Rohan. He was a quiet, kind-eyed man from a village in Nagaland, India, with a gentle spirit and a look of perpetual curiosity. He was trying to find star anise, his mother's favorite spice. Their shopping baskets collided, spilling a rainbow of turmeric, paprika, and cloves onto the floor. Adani, ever so dramatic, gasped, "Ah! Ewo, my pepper quest is now a floor decoration." Rohan looked up, his English still a bit shaky, a beautiful work in progress. "Oh, sorry. Very sorry. You look for fire?" he asked, pointing at the pepper packet in her hand. Adani let out a booming laugh, a sound that made Rohan's heart do a little flip. "Yes, my dear," she said, her voice warm and melodic. "I am looking for fire. The kind that makes you sing and dance." From that dusty, spicy floor, a most unusual and beautiful flower began to bloom. Their early days were a comedy of beautiful misunderstandings. Rohan's English was selective. He understood words of kindness, the tone of a joke, the sincerity in a compliment. But complex sentences often got lost in translation. Adani, on the other hand, spoke a delightful, expressive form of broken English, a sweet melody of Yoruba intonation and London slang. It was a language all her own. She would try to tell him about her day, saying, "My brother, the traffic today, one kill person. I sit in inside bus for 2 hour, my back day pain me like say I carry concrete." Rohan would just nod, a serene smile on his face, and reply, "Yes. Concrete is good. Very strong." He didn't understand the complaint, but he understood that she was sharing her life with him, and to him, that was all that mattered. He would try to explain his love for classical Indian music, the intricate ragas and talas. The music, he'd say slowly, is color. Sad color, happy color. It speak to spirit. And Adani, who loved the booming, infectious beat of Afrobeats, would pat his hand and say, "I see am. Your spirit day dance well. Don't worry, one day I go teach your spirit how to do shaku shaku." Rohan wanted to spend his life with this vibrant, loud, loving woman. He decided to propose. He spent weeks practicing his speech. He wanted it to be perfect. He took her to a beautiful, quiet garden, the air smelling of roses and damp earth. He got down on one knee, his heart thumping like a drum. "Adani," he began, his voice trembling slightly. "My life before was flat. No pepper." Adani beamed. "You see, a life without pepper is no life at all. She agreed enthusiastically. Rohan, encouraged, continued. You bring fire. You make my eyes water. You make my stomach run. He meant it in the most romantic way possible, that she brought excitement and emotion that overwhelmed him. But Aduni's brow furrowed. I make your stomach run. My dear, you chop bad food. Should I give you charcoal? He panicked, realizing his words were getting jumbled. He quickly pulled out the ring box. I want to run stomach with you forever. Aduni stared at the ring, then at his earnest, confused face, and it all clicked. A wave of laughter erupted from her, so pure and loud that the birds in the trees seemed to stop to listen. You this man, she cried, pulling him up for a hug. Yes, yes, I will run stomach with you forever. We go run 'em together. The wedding was a spectacular, beautiful, and utterly chaotic affair. It was a fusion of Yoruba and Naga traditions that left everyone delightfully bewildered. The morning began with the Yoruba engagement ceremony, the Alaga Iduro singing praises and teasing Rohan's family, who smiled and nodded, understanding nothing but the joyous energy. Aduni was breathtaking in her blue and gold aso oak, her gel sculpted like a crown. Rohan, looking slightly overwhelmed but handsome in his agbada, dutifully prostrated before Aduni's parents, a gesture of respect that moved everyone. The afternoon shifted to an Indian ceremony. Aduni changed into a stunning red and gold sari that Rohan's mother had chosen for her. The air, which had earlier smelled of Nigerian jollof rice and fried plantain, now mingled with the scents of incense, jasmine, and cardamom. Rohan's family performed their rituals, tying sacred threads and chanting prayers for a long and happy life. Aduni's family watched in fascination, whispering, "Ah, see their own way. Beautiful oh." The celebration was a testament to their love, a loud, colorful, spicy, and sweet blend of two ancient cultures, all dancing to the same rhythm of a shared future. After a blissful honeymoon spent trying to teach Rohan how to swim and Rohan trying to teach Aduni meditation, both with very success, it was time to move. Rohan's family, steeped in tradition, had asked him to return home to Nagaland for a few years to help with the family business. For Aduni, leaving London was one thing, but moving to a remote town in northeast India was a whole different world. She packed her bags, making sure to allocate an entire suitcase to what she called her survival kit: ground agouti, crayfish powder, palm oil, Maggi cubes, and, most importantly, a massive bag of dried Scotch bonnet peppers, also known as Ata Rodo. My love, Rohan had said, looking at the pepper-filled suitcase. They have chili in India. Aduni just shook her head, a knowing smile on her face. My dear, you don't understand. This is not chili. This is a spiritual experience. This is the soul of my cooking. We cannot leave the soul behind. Rohan, wisely, did not argue. He had learned that when it came to pepper, Aduni's soul was not to be trifled with. Rohan's family was wonderful. They welcomed Aduni with so much love, it warmed her heart. His mother, Anjali, was a sweet, quiet woman who communicated with smiles and gentle pats on the arm. His father was a big man with a loud laugh who seemed delighted with his new, vibrant daughter-in-law. The problem was, nobody spoke much English, and Aduni's knowledge of Nagamese was exactly zero. So, their life became a continuous game of charades. Priya, Rohan's younger sister, would point to Aduni's intricate Fulani braids, then make elaborate weaving motions with her fingers and give a thumbs up. Aduni would point to Priya's beautiful tribal necklace and pretend to be blinded by its beauty. It was sweet, but Adani felt a little disconnected. She wanted to show them who she was, to share her heart with them. And for a Yoruba woman, the fastest way to someone's heart is directly through their stomach. She decided she was going to cook for them. She was going to cook them a meal that would make them understand the soul of Adani, the daughter of Lagos. Oh, they were about to understand, all right. They just had no idea what they were in for. The day Adani decided to cook, the family was genuinely excited. They were curious about her culture. Anjali, Rohan's mum, happily gave up her kitchen for the day. Adani was in her element. She tied her gel tight, put on her favorite Afrobeats playlist, and got to work. She was making a classic, jollof rice and chicken stew. A dish of celebration. A dish of love. She unpacked her arsenal from the kitchen embassy. The aroma of crayfish and Maggi started to fill the house, a smell completely foreign to the family. Then came the main event. The peppers. She lined up the Scotch bonnets on the counter. They looked like little red bombs of flavor. Now, back home, cooking for 6 people, she might use about 10 peppers to give it a good, respectable kick. But this wasn't just dinner. This was a statement. This was a cultural presentation on a plate. She wanted to impress them, to give them the full, undiluted experience. So, she chopped up 15 of the fieriest ones she had. And for extra love, she threw in a spoonful of ground cayenne pepper. The stew bubbled away on the stove, a deep, angry, beautiful red. She tasted it. Ah, she sighed happily. Perfect. When Adani brought the food to the table, there were gasps of admiration. It looked incredible. The jollof rice was a perfect, glowing orange, and the chicken stew was a rich, velvety red. She served everyone with a huge smile, feeling like a queen. "This one is from my home," she announced proudly. "Please, eat. Don't be shy." Rohan's father, as the head of the house, took the first bite. His eyes shot open, wide. He chewed, and a single, perfect bead of sweat popped out on his forehead. He gave Adani a tight, strained smile and nodded. Then Anjali, the mother, took a spoonful. Her hand immediately flew to her throat, and she started fanning her open mouth with her other hand, her eyes watering slightly. Priya, the sister, took a bite and let out a tiny, choked gasp, before grabbing her glass of water and downing the entire thing in one go. Adani saw all of this. But in her mind, these were all good signs. Watery eyes. Success. Fanning the mouth. A standing ovation. She beamed, completely unaware that she hadn't just served them dinner, she had served them a culinary declaration of war. What happened next was like a silent, polite, emergency evacuation. The meal became a ballet of suffering. Rohan's father suddenly developed a cough so violent it seemed to shake the house. He excused himself, walking very fast, and was gone for a suspiciously long time. He came back looking pale and dabbing his eyes with a handkerchief. A few minutes later, Anjali remembered a very urgent task she needed to do in the garden, which happened to be right past the only toilet in the house. Priya, the youngest, started hiccuping. They were not normal hiccups. They were desperate, fiery hiccups that sounded like tiny explosions. A tag team system was born without a single word being spoken. Take a bite, smile at Adani, drink water, fan mouth, wait a minute, then politely excuse yourself and make a beeline for the bathroom. Adani, meanwhile, was in her own world, enjoying her food and telling Rohan stories. "You see," she whispered to him happily. "They are enjoying it so much, they are quiet. In Nigeria, when food is this sweet, you don't talk, you just focus. Rohan, watching his sister sprint from the table, just nodded slowly. Yes, my love, he said. They are, very, very focused. Force. Adunni, bless her beautiful, peppery soul, interpreted the previous night's stampede as a wild success. So, the next night, she decided to make egusi soup, another Yoruba classic. And this time, she thought, she'd be gentle. She only used 12 Scotch bonnets. As she was cooking, Anjali, Rohan's mother, glided into the kitchen. She smiled her sweet, gentle smile, patted Adunni on the back, and then placed a massive bowl of creamy, homemade yogurt on the counter. For dinner, she whispered. That night, the family came to the table armed and ready. Next to each person's plate was a bowl of yogurt. It was their shield, their armor, their only hope. Adunni served the thick, delicious, lava-hot soup. They would take a tiny spoonful of soup, and immediately, before the fire could even register, they'd chase it with a huge spoonful of cooling yogurt. It was a perfectly synchronized military operation. Adunni watched this, puzzled. Ah, she remarked to Rohan. In your culture, you eat soup with yogurt. Like, dip. Rohan, his mouth full of egusi and yogurt, could only nod frantically. Yes, very, old tradition, he mumbled. Cannot have one, without the other. Impossible. The rest of the family nodded in desperate agreement, their faces a mixture of pain and relief. The pepper problem was getting worse, but the language barrier turned the whole situation into a slapstick comedy. They tried to tell her. Oh, they tried. Rohan's father, after one particularly fiery fish stew, patted his round belly and said something long and passionate to Rohan in their dialect, finishing by making a gesture like an erupting volcano. Rohan, trying his best to translate the poetry of his father's pain, turned to Adunni and said, "My father says, he feels a great warmth from your food. A fire of happiness in his belly." Adunni clapped her hands. A fire of happiness. I knew it. Oya, tomorrow, I will make the fire even bigger for him. The look of pure, unadulterated horror on her father-in-law's face was completely missed. Another time, Anjali took Adunni for a walk in the market and pointed to some mild green chilies, smiling and nodding. Adunni thought her mother-in-law was being critical of her pepper choice. "Ah, Mama, no," she said, wagging her finger playfully. "This one is for babies. My pepper is for warriors. It will make you strong." She then went home and made a batch of peppered gizzards so hot, Priya claimed she saw the color purple for the first time. The family had now resorted to preloading on yogurt before dinner even started, like bears preparing for hibernation. The day a respected village elder came to visit was the day things went from bad to worse. Adunni, wanting to impress the important guest, decided to make a special treat, her famous peppered snails. She cooked them in a sauce so red it looked like it was glowing, garnished them beautifully, and served them with toothpicks. The elder, a man who had probably seen everything in his 80 years, picked up a snail, popped it into his mouth, and began to chew. And then, he stopped. Everything stopped. His chewing, his breathing, his blinking. His eyes, which were usually calm and wise, were now wider than the plate. He just stared into the middle distance, a look of profound shock on his face, as if he had just seen the face of God, and it was holding a Scotch bonnet. Rohan's father jumped up and thrust a glass of water into his hand. The elder drank it, stood up, gave a very stiff, formal bow, and then turned and walked, very quickly, out of the house and down the road, without saying another word. Adani was heartbroken. "What is it?" she asked Rohan, her voice trembling. Did he not like it? Was the snail not fresh? Rohan watched the elder basically power walking into the sunset. "No, my heart," he said, choosing his words very carefully. The snail, it gave him a spiritual vision. He has gone to think about the universe. And then came the night of the goat meat pepper soup. For Adani, this dish was the pinnacle of Nigerian cuisine. It was love in a bowl, without a shadow of a doubt, the hottest thing she had ever cooked in her life. She used a secret blend of peppers, including one she had nicknamed the Destroyer. The steam that rose from the pot was so potent it made her own eyes water, which, to her, was the sign of a masterpiece. She served the soup. The family, now veterans of her cooking, looked at the dark, oily, fragrant broth with the kind of respect and fear usually reserved for a sleeping tiger. They each took a tiny, hesitant sip. The reaction was immediate and universal. It was like a bomb had gone off in their mouths. Rohan's father let out a sound that was less a cough and more of a primal roar. Anjali went completely silent, her face turning a color not found in nature. And Priya, poor Priya, just burst into tears. Not sad tears. Just hot, spicy, painful tears. The polite relay race to the bathroom was over. This was a stampede. It was a full-blown, every man for himself, code-red evacuation. The pepper soup had won. Adani was sound asleep, dreaming of happy pepper-filled dreams. Her father-in-law summoned Rohan to his study. This was no friendly chat. This was an intervention. He sat Rohan down, his face looking tired and defeated. Speaking in their native tongue, he laid it all out. He explained that they loved Adani. She was the sunshine of their home. But her cooking, he clutched his stomach, her cooking was like trying to swallow the sun. He described the burning, the pain, the endless trips to the toilet. He said he now knew every single crack in the bathroom ceiling. He got up and mimed a person running, clutching their behind, which made Rohan cringe. He wasn't angry. He was pleading. He loved his daughter-in-law, but he also loved a life where he could sit for more than 10 minutes without needing to sprint. "Son," he finished, his voice heavy with emotion, "you have to do something. For the love of all that is holy, you have to stop the fire." Rohan finally, truly, understood the scale of the crisis. Rohan approached Adani as she was happily humming in the garden. He took both her hands in his. "Adani, my heart, my everything," he said, his voice very serious. "Yes, my sweet potato," she replied, smiling. "Tonight," he said, taking a deep breath. "Tonight, you do not cook." Adani's smile faltered. "Why? Are you tired of my food? I was going to make ofe nsala for you. The white soup." "No, no," he said quickly. "Your food is a festival. But the stomach needs to rest after the festival. The cleanup crew is on strike." He looked her right in the eye, his gaze intense. "Tonight, I will cook. For you." Adani was floored. Rohan. Cook. The man who considered boiling water for tea a major culinary achievement. You will cook for me." "Yes," he said, a strange, determined look on his face. "I will cook. My food. The food of my village. You will taste my soul." Adani's shock melted into pure delight. "Ah, my husband. You are finally learning. You want to pamper your wife. Okay, oh, let me see your magic. I hope you are making that biryani thing I like." Rohan just gave her a small, mysterious smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. "No," he said softly. "It is much more traditional than that." Adani was over the moon. She immediately got on a video call with her best friend in Lagos. "Bissy, you cannot believe it. My husband has entered the kitchen. I repeat, Rohan is in the kitchen. The training is complete. He is making a special, romantic, secret village meal for me tonight." Meanwhile, Rohan was in the kitchen, and it was clear this was not going to be butter chicken. He had received a special package that morning, delivered by a cousin from his remote village. He unwrapped it carefully. The sounds coming from the kitchen were strange. Adani, sitting in the living room, heard a dry, rattling sound. Then some sharp, cracking noises. The smells were not of cumin or garlic. They were earthy, smoky, and wild. She just smiled to herself, thinking, "Ah, my poor baby is struggling with the spices." She had absolutely no idea that her husband was not struggling with spices. He was preparing a meal based on recipes that were centuries old, a taste of a part of his culture she had never even imagined existed. When it was time for dinner, Rohan had outdone himself. He had set the table beautifully, with candles and everything. Adani felt like she was on a fancy date. "My darling, you have tried everything looks so romantic," she said, sitting down. "Only the best for you," Rohan replied, his face unreadable. He went to the kitchen and came back carrying 2 plates, each covered with a metal lid. He placed one in front of her. The anticipation was killing her. "Okay, my Indian master chef, let me see what you have created," she said, wiggling in her seat with excitement. Rohan looked at her, his expression soft. "This is from my home. A true taste." And with that, he lifted the lid off her plate. Adani's excited chatter died in her throat. Her smile froze, cracked, and then evaporated from her face. She didn't scream. She didn't gasp. She just stopped. It was like someone had pushed the pause button on her entire existence. She stared down at the plate, and her mind went completely, utterly blank. On the plate, arranged with the care of a Michelin star chef, was a meal straight out of a nightmare. On one side was a pile of what were very clearly giant, black, deep-fried cockroaches, glistening under the candlelight. On the other side were slices of a pale, textured meat, garnished with herbs, that could only be one thing: snake. To complete the presentation, the small, roasted head of the snake was placed right on top, its mouth slightly open. Adani's brain tried to process the information. "Is that a cockroach? The same cockroach I will pursue around my house with a slipper and a can of insecticide. And is that a snake? The animal that the Bible itself said we should not trust. And my husband, my sweet, gentle Rohan, has put them on a plate and served them to me for dinner." She felt the room tilt. This had to be a joke. A very, very cruel joke. She slowly, very slowly, lifted her eyes to look at her husband, expecting to see him laughing. But Rohan was not laughing. He was smiling. A calm, gentle, loving smile. He lifted the lid from his own plate, revealing the same meal. He then picked up his cutlery, cut a piece of the snake, and ate it. He chewed thoughtfully. He said. "The taste of my childhood." Then, Adani watched in what can only be described as slow-motion horror. He picked up one of the giant, crispy cockroaches with his fingers. He looked at her, still smiling that sweet smile, popped it into his mouth, and bit down. The sound was deafening in the silent room. It was a crisp, dry, definitive sound. The sound of an insect exoskeleton shattering. He chewed, swallowed, and sighed contentedly. He then gestured to her plate with his fork. "You should try," he said, his voice soft. "It is a delicacy. I wanted to share it with you." Adunni just stared. The man she loved, the man she married, was eating a cockroach. And he was smiling at her. At that moment, she questioned everything she had ever known about love, marriage, and the entire human race. And then, in the middle of her silent, internal scream, something in Adunni's brain clicked. It was an epiphany. A moment of glorious, hilarious clarity. She thought of Rohan's father, his eyes watering as he swallowed her pepper soup. She thought of his mother, desperately fanning her mouth. She thought of Priya, crying from the heat. She saw their polite, pained smiles. They had looked at her beautiful, soulful, pepper-filled cooking with the exact same terror she was feeling right now looking at this plate of creepy crawlies. Her food, her beloved jollof, her sacred pepper soup, was their snake and cockroach. He wasn't trying to scare her. He was trying to love her. He was showing her his soul food, just as she had shown him hers. The absurdity, the perfection, the beautiful irony of it all washed over her. A giggle escaped her lips. Then another. And another. Until she was howling with laughter. She was laughing so hard that tears were streaming down her face and she couldn't breathe. Rohan stared at her, utterly bewildered. "Why you laugh? The food is funny." Adunni wiped her eyes, gasping for air. "My love," she said, her voice weak from laughing. "My pepper, and your cockroach, they are family." Rohan looked confused. "Family? Yes," she shrieked, laughing again. "They both make people want to jump up and run for their life. But you know what? From today, we cook together. 50-50. A little bit of my fire, and my dear husband," she said, pointing a shaking finger at his plate, 0% of your crunchy friends. "Is that a deal?" A slow dawn of understanding spread across Rohan's face, and he started to laugh too. And there they sat, two people from two different worlds, brought together by a plate of insects and a pot of pepper, finally understanding the true, universal language of love, finding the delicious, hilarious, and perfect middle ground. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this story, please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to my channel for more inspiring African tales. Your support means the world to me, and it helps me continue sharing stories that touch hearts and change lives.